Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
Excited for my friends in Denver. My college roommate lives there, and he's a mild fan, but it's nice to be in a city, unless you're shot, nice to be in a city that won a championship.
Jesus. We'll get to that in a minute. Henry Abbott, how are you?
I'm good. I forced my way onto the show today, right? There was no good reason for me to be here, but I just woke up with just full of ideas. So I made a document, and then I had to kind of cut and paste it into your document. Thank you for having me, Jarod. That's my main point.
All good. Like Henry, a little group chat. All of a sudden, Jarod, can I join the show? I'm like, oh, he's got ideas. Okay, so when that happens, then I mean, he is the boss. So like, he can be on the show whenever he wants.
You can kick me out of this. It's totally fine. It's absolutely fine.
So we're excited.
What if I started my own competing podcast? That'd be kind of
that'd be kind of weird. That'd be a little.
I would have said fucking stupid.
As listeners of this podcast know, David is the more direct one of us when we're saying things. I talk around a little more politically. David's like, fuck that. I'd
say Jarod's like better with people.
Depends on the people.
Well, it certainly depends on the people. You got to do a little courtier stuff, right? Where you got to know how to play politics, and we're talking about that briefly before we started the show, right? Oh, the NBA, but the Denver Nuggets, for the first time in franchise history, are NBA champions. They defeated the Miami Heat in 5 games. Denver had a hell of a run. They went 16-4 this postseason. Really, really incredible basketball. We all said, I think, multiple times, the best team for sure, all playoffs, beginning to end. They were phenomenal. I wanted to just do quickly from each of you guys your top lines, takeaways from Game 5. Let's start with you, Henry.
I mean, I just walked my dog, and while I was walking the dog, the thought that just was stuck in my head was, everybody who thinks you have to be obsessed with the game and love the game to be great at the game is wrong. Like Jokic, I don't know if we're going to get to this more, but like he basically said, like, people who say they love their jobs are lying. Right? And when there's like, when's the parade? And he's like, oh, I gotta go home. He's super physically bummed he has to go to the parade. But he loves the game plenty to put in an infinite amount of work to go from where he started to where he is now. He's the best at the game right now, for sure. But he just doesn't have that, like, Michael Jordan lying on the floor, cradling the ball, crying about his dad. Like, that is not in his heart. Like, he wants to go home. He says work, it's not a job he particularly enjoys.
I like that. And we'll get into that. David, your thoughts on the game?
First of all, Henry just divulged my story coming out later today or tomorrow. You haven't read it yet.
Oh,
but yeah, that's what don't apologize at all. I'm glad you feel that way, because that's what I in the 30-minute walk I had this morning talking to Otter, literally the entire 30 minutes talking to Otter that Travis is editing right now. That was the brunt of it.
Like the sheriff's going to roll by and be like, sir, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Why are you just talking to yourself?
Yeah.
There's a man outside walking and talking to himself.
I do go by people in the park and they look at me kind of funny, but I'm on the phone talking all the time anyway. They don't realize I'm talking to a machine. So my takeaway was, what a fucking piece of trash game that was.
I knew that was coming.
Except for one man.
Bruce Brown.
So how's this number? He goes 12 of 16 from the field, and fairly to be said, is the focus of Miami's defense. He still goes 12 of 16.
Correct.
The rest of the teams combined, 59 of 164.
Wow, yeah.
This was a trash fire game for lots of reasons. And the crown jewel of it all is the champion. And that's what happens when you have the world's best player on your team in these kind of games sometimes.
Well, this is, our basketball brains, and because we've been together now for a bit, start being similar and think about things similarly. And so that was a lot of what I took away from the game. So in my mind, I would say something polite like uneven play. and David would say, what? Trash.
You're just lying when you say uneven play. You're just lying. Of course, there were some good moments. I'm gonna read off a text I got last night. Hold on. Keep going, Jarod. I'm sorry. Keep
going. But I thought there were moments, as David mentioned, where guys made championship winning efforts. Now, sometimes they were on the Heat and they did not win the championship, but it was still a championship level effort. I was thinking of one play in particular that KCP made on the Nuggets when it looked like it was going to be a clear outlet pass to Bam for a layup at the other end late in the fourth, and he sprints back to tip it out of bounds. Like, you think, who cares? What does it matter? That was 2 points. Now not on the board, right? Like, all these little things that I saw. Yeah. Kyle Lowry diving all over the floor.
Kyle Lowry is so fun to honestly. He tried so many little late ref game things, and they almost worked.
And at this point now, this is where I am with Kyle Lowry. I'm done with that shit. Like, enough of the ref games. Like, no more. Done with that. But and I thought that guys really. I saw there were nerves, David. I thought there was definitely some nervousness. Like, shit, this is it. This is a big moment. But not
from the guy who doesn't give a shit about basketball. That guy wasn't nervous.
And then there was the guy who has an equilibrium, right? Of just this is my level. Although there was a point at the sideline during a timeout where he's on the bench, and you can see he is like not happy, and he is like exhorting.
It's
right.
It happens, more than
so
once.
He has his moments where he, well, come on, do whatever I need you to do. But then when he's on the floor, he gets it back to his equilibrium, and it's okay. He makes a turnover late on that pass, lob attempt to Aaron Gordon.
He was upset.
Freak out in that moment.
He was upset, but under control.
Go back on the court. It's fine. We'll get the next one, right? And I think those things are all important. So to tie it into what David's saying, when you have the best player and he can manage his emotions and because if he starts freaking out, then I feel like they're all going to start freaking out and then they lose. But he's like, okay, fine. I'm mad in the moment. Calm. Let's get back to it. Let's do what we got to do. And it permeates through everybody. And I thought Denver just really, and the last thing I'll say is they won the game and won games all playoffs playing every different style. The way they like, which is up and down, offense, whatever. They played Miami style, down in the mud, grinded out, like out physical. They did it every possible way, and they are deserving champions.
Did you see the post-game interview where Tim McMahon asked Jokic about yelling in the timeout?
I did not. What do you say?
So Tim, as I recall, was basically like, you did get really passionate. Like, a lot of the questions were about how do you feel? How do you feel? And he just wouldn't give it up. He just wouldn't. Basically, he's like, we did our job and we did well, and now we get to go, this kind of thing. And so Tim asked about this moment when he clearly felt something, and he's like, oh, you banged the chair and you yelled, and he's like, I didn't bang the chair. Thanks for making it bigger, And then, but then he's like, look, this is part of how I relate. Sometimes I yell at them, like I think they're completely used to it. Like he's like, I don't even think it's a big deal to them anymore. Like, but we were in a game where it was very hard to score, and we were running around shooting threes, and I just felt like in this game where the score's gonna end up in the 80s or 90s, like a 2-point basket is worth more. Why don't we just get some easy buckets, and then we can worry about everything else later? And that's what he was
doing. He saved them in the fourth quarter when they were just struggling. I didn't tweet last night, but if I had, I would have tweeted like Jokic needs to grab this game. The game is open right now. Someone's going to grab the steering wheel. But he clearly sensed it. And that's what the world's best players can do. Jimmy Butler tried. He really did manufacture a little rhythm for himself. And I sent you guys that 3 that he almost made. I thought he was going to make it because he just had figured out his rhythm finally. Even on a miss, he looked better as a corner miss with 5 to play. Bjorn Borg was a pretty fucking spectacular champion in a brutal, brutal sport and managed emotions just fine. Like there's lots of different ways to be a competitor. No one could ever accuse Jokic of not really. I know Henry's kidding. Of course he cares. As you just said, the timeout.
And all the work, man. Yeah.
You don't get this good without caring.
Did you see him jump in the pool with Murray?
Murray, yeah.
Nice.
Like I did, but what I was looking for is you can't really always tell what a guy's physique is in those uniforms. He was just wearing a little wife beater. He looks fucking good, man. This guy looks lean and strong. That took work. Yeah. It's not just to take it off, to keep it off. Yeah. He in a game where everyone was so exhausted, he was tired. He wasn't beat. That just doesn't happen naturally. And his understanding of the game, that skill level, Miami was doing everything they could. Fuck that guy up.
Didn't work.
12 of 16 in the deciding game. Like, by the way, no one who made more than 2 shots in the game even shot 50%. No one. Couple of guys, one guy went 2 of 2, one guy went 2 of 4. No one who made more than 2 made half their shots, except for this cat who went 12 of 16. Like, if you switch Bam and him, they're parading in Miami big time, He's the difference maker. That's the best player in the world.
No, he was just phenomenal. And, again, his ability to just settle the team and get them into the right play and make the right read It may not always result in a basket, right? Because guys got to make shots or whatever's got to happen, but they seem to always settle and get themselves into whatever they need. And in that first quarter, God, what did Denver have 5 straight turnovers to start the game? And I was like, oh, this is looking pretty ugly.
They were bad.
And Miami got out to that lead, and then Denver made the run and came back. But it just felt like the game was just so nip and tuck the whole way. And to your point, David, like when you have the world's best player, it's like, well, that's the edge, right? Because that guy is going to make the right play or the winning play 98, 99 out of 100 times.
I think we should say something else too. Bruce Brown, maybe Henry put it in the doc, or one of y'all did, about how he wants to stay.
Oh, I did. Yep.
Okay, I definitely know from inside the locker room that the team culture is super good. And I just don't think it's a surprise when Jokic is the best player. Yeah. It's just easy to feel seen when the world's best player is such a gifted passer. You're the one getting some of those gifts. It's easy to create that.
Well, he doesn't mind, there's plenty of spotlight to go around too, right? Like, it's just
for sure.
He
wants that. He doesn't want to talk about himself.
Some NBA teams have had stars who are very upset if someone else gets a lot of credit, right? And that makes it a little bit harder to be, the guy on the 2-way contract who's trying to carve out an identity, right? But he mentioned freaking Colin Gillespie in the press conference, like someone he was happy for. Jokic did, right? And I just feel like this is it helps that there's plenty of oxygen daylight for everybody. Right?
Yeah. Did you see who was it? Monty Morris that he was greeting his former teammate. Yeah, in the Miami.
Yep.
Yeah. So to your point, Henry, when he was interviewed on the stage right after the game was over, Jokic, I really was looking at Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray lived a life, man, to get to this point.
No doubt.
As a kid, my son has read about what that dad did, worked for the Murrays. My son wrote me a very lovely note about, we're going to be best friends forever. And he doesn't think we'd be that way if I had done those things. It worked great for Jamal, and he talked about Pops right away.
It's kind of child abuse, to be honest.
It seems pretty fucking crazy to me.
Yeah.
So, and then of course the injury, right when you really might win a championship or two with this guy. And so I watched Jamal as Jokic was talking, and he just he had a look of bliss on his face.
Calm. He was super calm.
You're right. He really was. There was zero feelings of anything but pure joy that this is my guy. And he's better than me. And I'm okay with that. That's not how he probably would live his whole life. He had to be better than everyone all the time. But there's always someone better than you unless your name is Nikola Jokic right now. It doesn't mean he'll win next year, by the way.
Right.
At all. We'll get into that later. This ain't an individual sport.
Well, Jamal,
I really like Jamal,
right?
Jamal's
like the sword, right? It's like let's say Jokic is like the, I don't know, my terrible analogy here is like Lancelot or something, right? Some great warrior. But Jamal's
he's
Excalibur. He's the thing.
Yeah, he's Excalibur, right? It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. He's very fortunate.
Again, playing with, when we talked about it in the past about playing with a guy like Steph Curry, it's like when you play with teammates who are elite and excellent and currently or at one time best in the world, but are okay with a teammate who is just as good or maybe just slightly less or whatever, shining more so than they are. That's what helps, because this league is full of ego, right? We know that, and insecurity and all sorts of things. And it's, people have their own ideas in their head about what they have to do to become whatever it is they think they're supposed to be, right? That's how you make this league in large part. So to have that kind of cohesion and a leader like that who was like, I don't care about any of this shit. So if you guys want it, cool. Let's just win some games. I'm going to go home and FaceTime my horses. But now, no FaceTime. I'm actually getting on the plane to Soundboard. I'm going to go see my horses because we got races on Sunday.
Did you see what he said on NBA TV about getting a ride home?
Yeah, he's like, I got to get the team plane. He's like, I think I should ask Stan. No, I think I'm like, no, if you tell Stan you want the team plane,
got the plane.
He will give you the team plane.
I thought that was cute though, that he was doing pumpers when he realized I might get a free plane out of this. Yeah.
That was the phase 2, right? So back in the press conferences when he learned about the parade, right?
Right. He was like, what, Thursday?
Then he kind of refined his PR game a little bit to I think I'm going to tell Josh I need the plane, right?
Or Josh, not Stan, whoever. Whichever Kroenke.
They both have a plane.
Controls the plane. Kroenke. I want to talk about some of the others. We mentioned Jamal Murray, who had a phenomenal finals, really a phenomenal playoff run.
He did.
No
surprise.
Nope. We saw this before. His numbers all went up, by the way, Dave, from his regular season averages. Everything was up in the postseason. He was outstanding. Bruce Brown.
Meaning it's a good strategy, by the way, to not go hard in the regular season.
And also not play, what is it, 3,000 minutes? Play or 2,000, play less than 2,000 minutes, I think was the number.
So he was, 3,000 was the old number.
Okay. What did you say, Henry?
This quiz thing is out of control.
But it's certainly less than 3,000 minutes, right? Because if you play more
Everybody
than
played less than
he was like at 2,400, I want to say.
he was super low. Yeah, he was super low. Bruce Brown had an amazing playoffs run. He had some, first of all, of course, game 4, but in game 5, that late come and crash in to get the rebound and the layup to put the Nuggets up. I was like, man, that's a guy who's just constantly moving and recognizes the moment. Because David, you know from coaching players, the moment can cause paralysis, right? You're like, oh shit, and then you just buckle up and you don't move. You can't dive to the rim and do all things you're supposed to do. He was doing that.
Hey, come on, get to your player.
No, I'm getting to Aaron Gordon. Listen, we're doing all the things. Aaron Gordon had a bunch of steals. He had some great defense on Jimmy Butler.
But no interview after the interview 4 guys and not Aaron Gordon. That was weird, I thought.
Who?
After the game, Lisa Salters.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think when the ABC, and Henry, you know this better, I think they have it's like a window, and it's like, okay, got to do Jokic, got to do Murray, right? Like, they just have...
the guy who married into the Walmart fortune, can't miss that.
Well, but also, listen, when you are already from money, like, that's how you, right? A Kroenke and a Walton, would find themselves, right? That's how that works. Like, a Walton heiress isn't going to marry, if I had kids, one of mine, right? Because we don't travel in the same circles. That's not a thing, right. Which is fine. Whatever.
But anyway, Aaron Gordon definitely, guarded Jimmy well.
Yeah.
He was huge in some games. Yeah.
You're like that? You're like, Jarod special kid marrying a Walton heiress too. Anyway, Aaron Gordon
guarded Jimmy well. He guarded Jimmy super well.
He guarded Jimmy super well. And yes, David, Michael Porter Jr., despite not shooting well, played well in game 6.
He did.
17 and 13, 16 and 13. Game 5, excuse me.
13 rebounds. He did that twice in the finals.
Yes. Once
the entire season in a game in Utah early this season. That's valuable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't great. He was good in this game. Mm-hmm. You know what he shot from 3? Don't look it up. You know what he shot from 3 in the series?
Oh, probably 10%.
Close, 14%.
I think he made 2 threes, maybe.
I don't know that we would have picked him to win the championship if we knew ahead of time he had 14% through 5 games.
Agreed.
Tells you how bad Miami was, really. They were terrible.
I mean,
Denver apologized for nothing.
No.
But the Heat sucked.
And the Nuggets also helped them suck, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, it's hard to guard them. It's hard to guard them. There is a stress to that, but mostly Jimmy sucked and the Heat sucked, and Denver kicked their ass.
So we talked about this, David. The Heat struggled to score all season long. That's who they were over 82 games. Then they kind of was like, oh, they found something in the postseason. But you kind of saw some of the stuff do what it did, right, in this series, right? It's like, oh, like how they were in the regular season, tough to score. They scored 38, I want to say, in the second half. So a paltry number of points in the second half.
And if it wasn't for Jimmy getting hot late with a couple major, I think he scored 8 straight points, it would have been worse than that. And I think, again, I've been saying he's hurt. He's just bad. I mean, he's a great player. Great players don't just have horrible games. They're too good. He's too smart, too tough, too experienced, but he was bad. Yeah. And Aaron Gordon deserves some credit, but they switched off him all the time.
Sure.
And, or dropped on him with Jokic. And something was going on there. He just wasn't the same player we saw like in the first 2 series, Milwaukee and New York. Even in Boston, he wasn't as good.
Yeah.
Because I think he was a little injured.
And it's also, even though Jimmy played 2,000 some odd minutes this year, right? It's still
could have been that too.
It's the pressure of all of the games and all the minutes. And I wonder, because they were up 3-0 on Boston, right?
Yes.
Had they swept the Celtics,
I think Miami could have won the championship. I've said that before.
Would he have been
a little bit wrong?
Would he have 25% more in the tank for this series?
And more time to rest, because remember, the finals were set no matter what. Mm-hmm. So he would have been resting whatever it is that's bothering him. Hey, Henry, what was it that didn't LeBron break his hand in one finals against the Warriors, and we didn't know until afterwards? Yeah. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we find out, whether through reporting or they admit it, that something's up with him, because he just wasn't the same player. He's a super quick guy at 6'7", and I did not see that quickness the whole series.
Yeah, no, it wasn't there. And, we say this all the time, like at this stage of the season, it's a war of attrition, right? I mean, everybody's got some kind of ailment that they're, and it's who can duct tape and crazy glue and hold it together long enough to hold the trophy at the end.
Or potentially be prepared for the playoffs by good long-term thinking. That's the other option.
Well, that's the smart option, but,
we have to be stupid. Don't forget that. We always have to be stupid. Actually, to this note, look, I just looked through this year's minutes played. This is a almost 20-year obsession of mine, and but I'll tell you that out of this whole finals, these two teams, one player was in the top 40 in minutes played. That was Bam, and Jimmy and Jamal were down in the 80s. So it really was like, anyway,
it matters. As we say all the time, it matters. Like look, it's not, the science is out there, people. Like, you want to be, this is the most important time of the year, right? The playoffs, because you're going for the big gold trophy.
You're a good
at
team.
The end,
yeah.
Right. If you're a good team. And so in theory, you would want your players to be as best as they can be for this time of year. Right. Well, one way to not do that is play them 40 minutes a night in, January, February, right? All regular season long as you gear up for this. But, some teams don't really have the ability to think beyond that, right? for whatever reason. We got to give a shout out to the Heat. They were just dragon slayers all postseason, right? Until they ran into
a great run, a great playoff run,
a terrific playoff run
again.
Yep, beating the Bucks, beating the Celtics.
Beating the hell out of the Bucks.
Yes, yeah, and not just beat. Beat them. They have been to the finals twice since they got Jimmy Butler. By the way, that's just a little FYI for everybody.
When there's a long-term, stat geeks have struggled in different ways to define contending, right? It's useful to know, if you get X, Y, and Z players, then you're contending, because only the one team wins, but a lot of other teams were good enough but didn't quite make it, right? So, I mean, since Stat Geekery began in the NBA, it's 55 wins has been the definition of contending, right? It works pretty well. This was a finals with a 44-win team against a 53-win team, which is kind of unheard of, right? And if that's the new normal, it's very, very exciting for the league, right? That means tremendous thing for next February, right?
We started this, Henry. We started the season with this. This was the parity league. That's the first article for the new year. Was about that exact topic.
Yeah, and it was right.
Yeah.
Well, we've said it for forever, right? The talent in the league now is so spread out, and there's so many good players all over the place, right? I mean, it's Detroit.
Wait, Detroit's the first team that you came up with?
Detroit's got a bunch of talent.
I'm thinking about the teams that all right, these are the teams that stink, but they're not even stink.
They've got Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. No, they've got a bunch of talent.
That's why I'm
I'm just saying, if we're looking around the league for talented teams, the Pistons would be
no, but they're
a top 20 pick.
Right, but they're an example of they're a bad team loaded with talent. They're just young talent.
Yeah,
the Kings are the ones that just demonstrated this, right?
They are now.
But you guys were talking yesterday about the new salary cap and everything, the CBA and all that. I think it's only going to make it even more so that way. It may take a couple of years for this to play out, but you're just not going to be able to load up.
And sorry, really fast. I've seen a common response from fans being like, "Oh my God, what the hell's wrong with the NBA? Why would they want to make it so we can't keep our team together?" It's I'm here to tell you that this is mathematical. If you're going to have parity, you need the good teams not to be able to keep everybody. That's exactly how it goes, right? If the good teams can keep everybody, then you have super teams. And that's just how it goes. I don't know who's right or wrong there. In European soccer, right, there's no salary cap. You can just pay and pay and pay. And
whatever you want.
They have 6 teams that do all the
same teams win all the time.
Right? You can have that. But if you want to have what we're talking about here, if you like that, then you have the Warriors of yesteryear have to lose players.
Yep.
That's the only way it happens.
So, and the Nuggets have to lose Bruce Brown.
Well,
he can choose
or he has to play really cheap. Yeah,
that's right.
So this goes into you're leading us perfect into the next part I want to discuss. So now, given all that, yes, they can be a dynasty, but it seems like it'll be much harder to be a dynastic team given the salary cap going forward. Now, they do have their core together under contract for at least the next 2 seasons, right? So Murray, Jokic, MPJ, and Aaron Gordon all locked up.
Yeah, but Bruce Brown was super core this year.
No doubt. I'm just saying of like the starting five, right? Like actually KCP is also on the contract, at least for one more.
I liked him a lot this year.
So you got your starting five is definitely coming back next year. That's a no-brainer. Everybody else, how much does Stan or Josh want to go into luxury tax and all that other shit?
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, Mike Malone, I'll tell you how you know that. We know that from history, but also when he very quickly on the podium, first getting the trophy, heard all the fans cheering. He was all into that. Like, we're not done.
We're coming back next year.
Yeah, that's a shot at Calvin Booth and the Cronkies. Like, you motherfuckers think you don't have to pay me? Fuck that. They'll kill you if you don't bring me back. I got the Jokic boys and the city, the fans.
Yeah, when the Jokic boys threw him up in the air,
right,
he landed in a pile of dollars.
Right, exactly.
Well, the good news about that is that coach's salaries don't count against the salary cap, so whatever, they can pay him whatever they feel like.
But if he starts wearing a hat with his own logo like Nick Nurse did, then the title run is over.
Nurse is the worst with that. Like, homie had his own logo. I was like, okay, rockstar coach, I get it.
Talk about high on your own supply. You know?
Seriously.
Yeah.
So, Henry, if you're Bruce Brown, right, and you played for us on $6 million, that was your contract this year, and you're a player option, which you will definitely decline and go into free agency, I have to imagine he's worth, I don't know, 15?
Pretty fucking good player, man. And playing his position. Not as a small ball four like he did in Brooklyn, where he was also pretty good, by the way.
And he can shoot, right? He taught himself. He knows how.
Good, man.
And he can defend and all the things.
Bouncy.
You got to keep him, right, Henry? Like, if he wants 15, fuck it. Pay him 15.
No, that's how dynasties end. Like, you just can't pay those guys. Like the whole, like, the way the value's delivered to the wins, like, you know, your fourth, fifth, sixth guy, like, is just replaceable. They all are, right? You can get those minutes to Christian Brown. Like, you just can. And, like, he's not as good, but he's
definitely not.
You know, he's going to make $2-3 million next year.
Probably less than that. Yeah,
it was the last pick of the first round, I think.
And so, you know, they have Peyton
Watson.
They got to dust him off and play that dude, develop him and
Colin
let him play.
Gillespie, and they got the guy.
They were playing him.
Yeah, they were. And then they made this trade in the middle of the finals for, you know, well, they have a kind of a bundle of picks. Maybe they're going to end up with a higher first round pick this year, but like they're programmatically going to fit, as John Hollander explained beautifully yesterday. Like, they're going to programmatically fill in around these stars with cheap, because you absolutely have to. The only way, look at the Warriors are all going to get broken up soon because they paid all the role players too, right? Like you have to. The reason you get to keep Jokic and Murray for the long haul is because you're not going in on the Bruce Browns. As a GM, your job is to get me another
Bruce Brown,
which is what they just did. Is they just modeled it. You go find a Bruce Brown in midseason because there always is one, right? Like that's the.
And you're gonna have to. His agent will have a good talk with the Brown family.
Yeah,
like here's the kind of money we're talking about: generational wealth potentially for you, not hundreds of millions, but 60 million is a lot of freaking money too.
Sure is.
And you'll find good teammates elsewhere, and they just won't be as good as Jokic. But and that's okay.
I mean, there's a million stories like this, but like I really felt like, you know, ISO Joe, right? Like Joe Johnson in Phoenix was like, you can be part of a special machine, or you can be a star. And like, and he went to Atlanta and had like he kind of knocked around and made a bunch of money. And like, does that make him happier than if he'd stayed in Phoenix? Like, I don't know, but it was a special thing in Phoenix, right? They had a special thing. And then he left, and that was a choice, and it's
their business.
It's fine, yeah, exactly.
So it's a short run business.
So you're looking at Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, Gillespie, whoever they draft this year,
Zeke Naji, I think,
who I kind of like actually.
Yeah, he's got a chance.
But the development, this is David's. What you do, they have got those this summer. Those guys, okay, enjoy the champagne, have a good time. Next week or two, whatever, however long you want to give for vacation, come back summer league, and we're grinding and working because you are now playing the Jeff Green, Bruce Brown, all those minutes. That has to be you in the finals next year.
Well, it doesn't have to be them, but they're going to have minimum job openings, and they're going to get the best they can, and it won't be crap, right? When you're really good, you get another Jeff Green-like player who wants to come in, right? But,
and Jokic makes them better anyway. And by the way, so does Jamal Murray the way he's playing right now. His passing ability, averaged 10 assists a game over 5 years, 50 assists. But Jokic just finds buckets for you. He coaches you up on the court. And because everything has to go through him, it almost guarantees you can't do. Like Jalen Green would be so much better in Denver. He wouldn't score as many points. He'd be such a better player.
Oh, for sure.
Because Jokic would hold him accountable within the construct of what he's capable of doing right now to win games. He wouldn't become the player he might one day become in Houston, but he'd be a better player now for sure.
It's funny. We're talking about Jokic yesterday on Monday's pod, and at the start of today is Travis, our editor, said something interesting. Is like, what if Jokic just decides at 30, I'm done playing basketball? And I was like, I wouldn't be shocked, right? Like that just seems to me like he could easily be like, let's say they win another title or two, he gets another. It's like, well, okay, like I made a ton of money, like I don't need any of this shit anymore. Like I'm good. I get to stay in Serbia now, right, with all my horses and do whatever. I mean, I'm not speaking for him. I don't know, but I could totally see a situation where he's like, okay, I've conquered this thing, and there's other things in life that I care more about.
I mean, he basically said that, right? I don't know. To me, it's like, actions speak louder than words, and his actions, he's, put in blatantly like insane hours dedicated to this
to be the best in the world.
But I mean, it was so funny to me, like with a camera cut to his wife holding his daughter in the stands, and she was like celebrating. She was like pumping her fist, like in a really like it meant the world to her. And they would go back to him, and he's like, yeah, I will now dutifully hug the next person who requires a hug. Like, and the only one he got to his brother was he like, that was a celebration. I honestly felt like he had to hold himself back from just like really kissing him, because he like kind of started to, and he's like, nah, that'd be bad on TV. And he like hugged his brother like people don't hug very much, right? And then he turns around to hug the next person, and his brother's like just didn't get enough and just gives him a big old hug from behind too, just like more hugs. Like, he's not a guy who's unemotional, but he's a little dutiful about the NBA gig, right?
I just liked that he shook hands with everyone. I didn't like, is the close up. We had to follow him around. Shit's going on everywhere. We could always go back and show us the individual stories,
right?
But show us initially the whole picture. These guys, they just drive me crazy. They too much. Let me see everything. Because lots going on. Just capture it, replay it later. There's no shortage of that time to do. I just didn't see a lot right away, and I never will.
No, it's all fair. Henry, we're on Jokic. Let's continue on with this. FaceTiming the horses, the sort of like dutiful way that there is an element of, and I want to be clear about it. I'm not saying that it's fake in any way, but there's a performative element to him when it comes to when the cameras are on, right? It's like, oh crap. Like, it's like, I don't want to like be who I really am and show you all that. So let me just come to the podium, do my assigned responsibility. Oh, I'm getting the MVP trophy. Let me come up. Thank you, Lisa. The team was great, right? Like, let's contain it, say as few words as possible, and then move myself back to the, blend in with everybody else. Like this way of like not wanting to stand out so much and be the center of everything. I mean, it could be just like I don't like being the center of attention. It's like weird.
I mean, I think we bully the living crap out of everybody who just doesn't have the right things to say about loving the game, right? Like, look at the structure of the questions. Like, I mean, it drives me crazy. They're like, like, how amazing do you feel right now? Right, it's like, what if I don't feel amazing? Right. Like the thing, whoever the unnamed superstars were who were calling Adam Silver saying they like hadn't talked to anybody in days and just went from the plane to the hotel room and wore headphones the whole time and were super like wrestling with mental health issues. Like, they don't feel amazing. It's so weird. It's like, I think my take on Jokic is he's just a little less performative, right? He's like, I'm 7 million feet tall. Like, my brothers are like, one of them's an MMA fighter. Like, I don't care if you don't like my message, like he's a little bit like, I got it, right. He's in a press conference and he's like, when is parade? No, I need to go home. Right. Like, and then he's like, okay, I want it. I mean, they asked him so many times how I felt. I think it's not the most important thing in the world. Still, there's a bunch of things that I like to do. Probably that's a normal thing, right? Nobody likes his job, or maybe they do. They're lying. Like he's literally said, I mean, how can we possibly interpret that other than he does not like his job? Right? Like, which is, it's everybody's dream job, and he has it, and he's MVP, and he doesn't like it, and we just have to live with that. It's just how it is. Like, it's fine.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to push back a little bit. Maybe he doesn't like that part of the job. Maybe
I like championships.
No, I like playing.
Yeah.
But now I have to talk to you about playing. No, I don't want to do that part. Me and my guys going to run up and down the court and shoot some hoops, and we're going to win. Yeah, that part I like. But talking to you about it, I don't like that part. I don't.
Maybe, like, but he didn't say that. He said he doesn't like his job, and everyone who likes their job is lying, is what he said, right? And I'm not saying. I'm just saying that like he's aching to get on a plane the fuck out of Denver, right? Like,
yes.
Like, I had a traumatic part of my life was in 7th grade. I was forced to go to school overseas, And like, you know how important that plane was? I started thinking about planes a lot because I just wanted to go home, right? Like, he's dropping those hints in everything he says, right? Like, he just wants to go home. He doesn't like Denver. He doesn't like America. He doesn't like the NBA, right? Like, he has a fucking job, right? Like, he just wants to go home. He said it. Like,
I would add to that and just say, it's not easy to be the best player in the world.
No.
There's so much pressure. And it's not just performative pressure, it's preparation pressure because you'll never perform well if you're not doing the work every day.
Yeah.
For him to know where the pieces are moving the way he does isn't just reactionary. It's also from preparation. They've seen the tape, he has. And who would want to keep doing that?
It's just hard work.
Yeah, he needs a break, man. He needs a break, and he is deserving of one. Listen, the whole league would love him to leave at 30 because this cat's willing. He's got a chance to be a great player for a long, long time here.
Well, he's already great, right? I mean, if his career were to end today, he's
Hall of
already.
Famer.
I mean, that's not even a question, right?
Oh my God, first ballot Hall of Famer.
It's
one of the best ever to play. Yeah.
And, we started talking about this yesterday, right? And how difficult it is for former players to talk about how great he is. And, I can't say he's, better than Shaq or better than Hakeem or better than whoever. And I'm like, we're having different conversations, right? Like, are you saying he's not as accomplished as them? Because that would be true, right? They've played longer. Right. So they have more All-NBAs.
He's still in his 20s.
Right. More All-Stars, more, right? So accomplishments, yes, they have more ticks on their chart. But if we're just talking about playing basketball, like just when you see this guy at his peak, this guy at his peak, and this guy at his peak, he is right up there with every all-time great we've ever seen. He is that. The question is, will he want to do this long enough? And Henry's suggesting no.
No, I'm not.
You're not saying no, but he might not.
I'm not. I would put a lot more stock in how much work he's done to be super on top of his game right now. I think that is a better indicator. But like, just how's he feeling emotionally about his job? It's like not fitting the profile. That's
isn't wouldn't we all say that Bill Russell was the first celebrity in this sport to talk about it's not who I am, it's what I do. He's very much showing you that. Like, I'm a basketball player, but that's not what I really am. That's my job. I think it's a super healthy.
Kareem was like that.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God, he's just
absolutely
like,
what's
wrong with Kareem? And it's like,
nothing's wrong
giant. With Kareem.
No. Absolutely right.
Doesn't like it that much.
Yeah. Right. Well, it comes at a cost. It's really, my accountant, don't call my accountant those first weeks of April and expect to get a pleasant conversation.
Yes, exactly.
So hard.
Yeah.
But starting in October.
Yeah.
It starts, and you can't,
that.
if you want to be up for MVP, which even if you don't want to be it, you'll be seen as a failure or failing if you're not dominating when you're Nikola Jokic. It's just hard. It's hard to do that for as long as he gets to do it.
Well, Jokic fits right in that every conversation we've had on the show about players today are better. Right? Sure. Like if Shaquille O'Neal could shoot threes and guard in space,
he'd be awesome.
He would have been way better than Shaquille O'Neal was, right? But you didn't learn those things. Like it would be a nightmare for Shaquille O'Neal, an unevolved Shaquille O'Neal, that Shaquille O'Neal who played then. They played, if you could take 28-year-old each man, Jokic would destroy him, right? Like O'Neal is amazing and would do a lot of stuff that would make highlights. But the fact is, like, this game is different now, right?
Yes,
like, and this is why Jokic destroys every.
He's a better offensive player than those guys. For sure. Like, even Olajuwon, as great as Olajuwon is offensively, Jokic has the Serbian shake. What do they call it? The Sambor, whatever?
Sambor shuffle.
But he can pivot and fake and pivot. Like, he's got all that shit.
Yeah.
And he's such a gifted passer and a pace pusher.
Yeah.
Right? And a half-court ball handler.
And the
right?
hub of the offense. Yeah.
And, right. Everything. A screener that reads the game.
Yeah.
And he showed in this series anyway against this team, he can make a difference in the paint defensively. Sure. He was a really important paint defender. And wasn't against the Lakers. He was against this team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Olajuwon was better than him defensively. Shaq was better than him defensively. Overall, I think it's a hell of an argument. Different eras, so it's hard to say because that game was so different. But this guy would be seen as an alien, just like all the Giannis. They all be seen as aliens.
Any player that you have these top guys and you put them in the 1980s, they would be on trial for witchcraft because they'd be like, "What are these people doing?
Right.
This is not basketball."
Kyrie for sure.
Right? Like it's just like no. Like, it's just
who can do that?
Henry said to me once on the phone, he's like, "It's almost always true that the same thing made now is better than what it was 40 years ago, right? In almost every case. And it's like, you look at it, it's just, that's the factual thing, right? We were talking about Jesse Owens that one time, and I was like, ooh, I wonder what Jesse Owens' fastest 100-meter was, right? And
what was it? 11 seconds?
No.
He was pretty fast.
He was fast. He was very fast.
Yeah.
It was like 10-1 or something like that. Like some super, but like
what are they doing now? Low 9?
Bolt runs 9.5. Right?
He did a lot of 100 yards.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where it gets tricky. A lot of his biggest performances were not in meters.
Right.
And then he did cinder track. So like which they've done some science to try to figure out. Basically, he might correlate to like some of the best runners today is the idea, but his times don't. Like,
yeah. There's still just one dude anyway.
Right. Yeah. The average person at that time running in the Olympic gold medal final getting crushed by
really
everybody
lift
else.
weights.
Right. Well, what did you say?
There's so many.
Don't lift weights in basketball; it'll ruin your shot.
Yeah. Like it's just of course it's better now, right? Like they lift weights among other things.
Among other things. So this part of the two, Henry, with the Jokic thing is the American Serbian dichotomy, right? He said numerous times he didn't grow up watching the NBA, like because that's didn't have it in Serbia, all the different things. But also it's our obsession with sports here and how we think as Americans it's the greatest job in the world, right? Because anybody who's a sports fan, if you ask them they would all want to be a sport right when they grew up, but no, none of us are that good. And Jokic, who is that, so everyone is like, well, why don't you feel it like we do? We want you to love this, like it's so fucking awesome, and it's like, cause it's not.
I mean, I wrote that little series about like LeBron being obsessive and a little bit like, it's a little bit socially repellent to be obsessive, right? But a lot of great athletes are. It's like it's all over sports, right? Yeah. Obsessive people are all over sports. And like people who are obsessive have a hard time accounting for people who aren't, right? And like you don't really care if you work out today or not. Is like, this is like a very like college teammates to each other, right? Like a lot of them got there because they never miss a workout, and like you can
skip a workout.
You can skip some workouts. You can and be the best. There's actually this little bit of like a mental training thing they do with sprinters. But like if you try to run as fast as you can, you're not as fast as if you don't try to run quite so fast, right? Like relaxation is part of the rhythm of how we move, right? And so anyway, I feel a little bit like that. Where it's like we're selecting from what's the number? It's like a few hundred people on the planet are 7 feet tall and between the age of 20 and 40. It's like, among those dudes, what's the likelihood they're also going to have this delightful sports OCD that we all think is so important? Well, guess what? This guy didn't get it.
Is it really just a few hundred?
It's some tiny number.
Yeah, it's not that many.
It's like something like 20% of the people in that age group on the planet Earth are in the NBA. Like,
I remember 17%. I remember reading that, but that was like a decade ago. Yeah. But that just seems like such a small number when you consider there's a good number of them in this league and in Europe. And then there's a lot of players that never make it.
Did with the stats there? We got them all. That's why it seems like there are a lot of them.
They're all here.
No, the 17% I get. Just a few hundred. It just seems. I'm not arguing with you. It's just incredible to think about.
But those go just together perfectly, right?
Yeah, they do. Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, because if you're 7 feet tall, you have to play basketball, right? That's like the thing. Well, come on.
They're gonna put a lot of pressure on you. Yeah.
You gotta. Here you go, kid. Here's a ball. Figure it out.
Yeah. And they didn't always get there. I mean, this is like the different dude thing, right? They're the 7-footers, right? They're the ones who were like, oh, you guys are going for an extra shooting session? Like, not. Like, no.
Not doing that. We're gonna skip that. I want to talk about the end of the game, something that happens at the end of every championship that none of us on this podcast like. So championship happens, they roll the makeshift stage up, the whole team's up there, everybody's exciting, and whoever network it is, so it's ABC in this case, and Lisa Salters and Adam Silver are here to present the 2023 Larry O'Brien Trophy for the NBA champion Denver Nuggets. And the first person who gets to touch it and talk is Stan Kroenke. Now, for a variety of reasons, Josh Kroenke is technically listed as the governor, so he's the one that goes to all the meetings and makes all the decisions and all that. But it stands. So the Kroenke Sports Entertainment own the Nuggets, the Avalanche, the Rams, Arsenal, and then a bunch of other sports teams in other leagues, like smaller, like volleyball, might be a women's soccer team in there somewhere as well, like just a bunch of stuff. And we're all just like, dude, you didn't do anything. Like, no running up and down, no extra shooting sessions.
No even decision-making. Right. According to the agents I've spoken to, it's all Josh Kroenke and Calvin Booth and Mike Malone and their executives. I haven't heard Stan's name mentioned in years. I was so surprised to see
And by
him.
NFL rule in 2015, there are a bunch of stories that
Right.
the NFL would not allow you to own an NFL team and an NBA team. So in 2015, they formally changed ownership team to Stan Kroenke's wife,
and Kroenke,
and I'm like, what? And then Adam Silver just hands him this, like, what? Oh, that was all just a joke. Like, oh, billionaires don't have rules.
And you know that, Henry. We don't have rules.
That's
And
so
why?
silly.
But so Henry and your dads, if we in that situation, even if we did more of the work and our sons did some of the work, 100%, I guarantee you and I would send our son to take the trophy.
What I would do is lean in uncomfortably close to Lisa Salters.
So mustache Sam with his freaking NBA Finals cap on, leaning in to poor Lisa Salters, and I'm like, "What are you, Stan? Like the microphone's here. We don't talk into that, not her ear. We can't hear that part. Like what?"
I think he's never going to be in public again. Like he's reticent anyway. But then it went like the feedback cannot be good. Like this was.
Did I ever tell you my Stan?
Drooled. Like
did I tell you guys last week about my only Stan Kroenke story?
No.
Where this was early in my career. I'm at a summer league game, on the practice court they use a lot for the early in the.
Oh, I know this one with the velour suit.
Yeah. Velvet or velour, one or the other.
Yeah.
So I must have told Henry wasn't on the show.
Yeah.
Where I was talking to someone and they're like, talking about just how weird owners are. And I really was kind of new. And I didn't know what they meant. And he walked in his like purple velour sweatsuit in Vegas in summer. And the guy's like, see what I mean? It was just so funny. It was so perfect. Like
the only time I ever met him was also in summer league, and he was wearing like button-down shirt, like you'd wear suit with a suit, and just stained sweatpants.
Oh, it's so
like
strange.
just like kind of ratty old.
Whatever.
I'm like, you're worth fucking $20 billion. Why are you just like a slob? You don't have to wear a three-piece suit.
Or don't you have a t-shirt?
Just wear clean clothes.
Nobody does this combo, sir. This is not. And I just recapped. Okay, he married a Walmart heiress. He was business partners with Charles Banks, who I believe is still in federal prison for stealing millions from Tim Duncan. One of the TV shows from his media empire features hunting elephants and lions, which are in danger.
Yep, not good.
He is from St. Louis, has all these stories about growing up in his parents' lumberyard, sweeping up the dust or whatever, bought the local NFL team, moved it to fucking LA for more money, right? Arsenal was like core to that new Super League that failed, trying to upend all of European soccer, gave $1 million to Trump's inauguration committee. And that's our guy. That's the guy. Why does Adam Silver give him the trophy? I think my answer is because he's good for Adam Silver. Well, right? It's about Adam Silver, right? Like Adam Silver, would be hurting a vote for things that matter to Adam Silver in the future if he did anything else. If he gave it to Nikola Jokic, then that would be good for the fans and the sport, but he'd have to push back on rich people. And this is a demonstration that most of what the NBA league office does is client services for the billionaires, right? He's a lawyer. Adam Silver's a lawyer from a white shoe law firm, and this is a white shoe client.
That's whose bosses are. Stan Kroenke and the other 29, those are his bosses. So he's got to do whatever they say. And so much of the NBA is, right, as we talked about before, is about knowing how to cozy up to power and be power adjacent and to make them always feel comfortable and whatever, and so that you get to keep your job. And so, Stan Kroenke gets to touch it first. Them's just the rules.
Sorry, Lisa Salters, about your ear.
What do you think? Because Stan Kroenke is like most of these billionaire guys, right? And they wake up in the morning and they go into wherever they go. Their PR person's like running in the headlines. Okay, Stan, this is what happened last night. Coverage not looking great. They said that, were you being creepy? Did you ask her on a date? Like, right? Like,
they're not telling them anything about that.
Listen, you guys already know the answer. He wore a button-down shirt with stained sweatpants. He don't give a fuck.
Yeah. He's been in the bubble a long time. Yeah.
Right, exactly right. You've heard the term "fuck you money." I have a couple of friends who are like at that stage where one of them is a billionaire. He has "fuck you money." Stan's had that for a long time now. Like,
he goes up there. He's stealing glory from Nikola Jokic, right?
Yeah.
And in those first few sentences, he mentions him as a chubby teenager, and I'm like, that's true, but like, do you have to bring it up?
You don't have to say
that now. Did anyone mention Calvin Booth?
No,
we did not hear on the podium.
Jarod did. Jarod mentioned Calvin Booth.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't on the podium, but I mentioned Calvin
I was
Booth.
waiting for Mike Malone to say something because I know I've heard anyway they don't get along at all.
Yeah.
And nothing. I was surprised. I was sadly surprised.
It's in that scrum after the champion is confetti and people just all over the place. Henry, you've been in the finals, and so have you, David. It's just like it's a madhouse, right? People everywhere, craziness. There was a moment where Malone and Calvin like kind of sort of like quick hug, like
very, very brief. It wasn't like the brothers that Henry was just describing.
No throwing people in the air. No, it wasn't that. That's joy.
It was the hug that proves there is an issue.
Right? I thought so.
Like they were hugging to try to look like there definitely wasn't an issue, but in fact the hug was so tepid.
Right. But now they have to work it out. Well, they have to work it out.
It's interesting that you say that. So I told you guys off air. So after the broadcast concludes on ABC, NBA TV picks up with all the post finals, whatever. So it's showing the locker room.
How late did you stay up, Jarod? What time did you go to bed?
I mean, late. I was watching. I was like, all right, enough of this shit. I gotta go to bed. So they're showing the locker room, showing the podiums, all that. Then they do the NBA TV set, and it was Matt Weiner and Brendan Haywood and Steve Smith and all them, Isaiah Thomas. And Calvin Booth is there being interviewed, and then Michael Malone comes up for his part. But every time they bring like a second person, whether it's a player, coach, whoever, the first person usually stays for a bit, and then they leave. Mm-hmm. And Calvin Booth is something really interesting. It's like they're talking about Jokic and just how he's the engine of the organization, how he makes everybody better and all that. And then Calvin goes, he even makes Michael Malone better. And I was like, okay. And like a little funny laugh, like, ha, and everyone's like, ah. And I was like, didn't Michael?
Wow, that's not nothing, Jarod.
Look, I don't want to play amateur. Like, ooh,
no, there's nothing.
What's going on?
I'm telling you, I've heard from very strong authority that they don't like each other at all. That can always change. People can change.
For sure.
The fake hug and all of that, and now this, yeah. They've got some fences to mend.
There's some stuff there for sure. There's some stuff.
Yeah, but Malone is loved by the Jokic's. And deserves credit for what he's built around Jokic on the court. Mm-hmm. They're a professional team and how they're structured.
Yeah,
the way they scout and pivot and all of that. Yeah, you can only credit them. And they've Jokic with a worse coach, maybe he wouldn't be a champion and be the best player in the world. They've done a hell of a job.
And kudos to Booth for the trades to get KCP. Bruce Brown in the offseason, right? Those
drafted
two were
Christian Brown.
Huge in the finals, right? Huge in the whole playoffs. Drafted Christian Brown, drafted Peyton Watson, right? Like, so, we'll see how this all continues.
Christian Brown, didn't he just do what Magic Johnson did? Who else has done that?
Oh, won a
not that he was the best player on both teams.
You need to define those terms a little bit
better. Oh, yeah. He won the title at Kansas.
He
won the title at Kansas, and now he just won again. So he wasn't Magic Johnson, but how many guys have done that back to back?
Not a ton. And actually, I think he won.
No, not very, very few.
I think he won 3 because he won his high school championship his senior year straight to Kansas.
But he didn't win his first year at Kansas. He wasn't a freshman last year, was he?
I thought maybe.
Holy cow!
Look it up. He might have been. Look it up.
He's that young. He's 2 years removed from a state champion.
Quizzes. He's 22.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah. So he was there for a couple of years then. That's what I thought.
Okay, so I listened right before we started the show. I was listening to Zach Lowe and Brian Windhorst, who recorded a podcast like on
after the game. Yeah.
And then the
I'll
Nuggets
listen to it later.
Vice President, Director of Scouting swung by, and he's celebrating. And they're talking about all these good draft picks. And then he's talking about, why this pick and why that one. And, they talk about championship pedigree as like a real thing. Right. And then there's some sort of theory about like, why Christian Brown, et cetera. And actually they said Calvin Booth put his foot down. He wanted Christian Brown. That was like really his pick was the story. But,
wow.
But what struck me was like, okay. And, and Hollinger wrote a good story about exactly what kind of players they're drafting and how they're playing, how they constructed their roster and salary cap approach. And it all sounds really smart. But then part of me is like, yeah, okay. I hear all that. But like, if you don't get the best big man in the history of the world with the 41st pick, like
none of this happens. None of this matters.
Like
there are
philosophy.
There are so many players in the NBA right now that did not play much for their team that could have played Christian Brown's role just fine.
Right.
Maybe a little better, maybe a little worse. It depends on. But when you have Jokic and Jamal Murray and all those other guys and that very, very tight role, I'm telling you guys, in 2 or 3 years, Christian Brown may be in Europe.
Right.
Because he just can't shoot.
On vacation after a title?
No. Unless he learns how to shoot.
There is no. I mean, I like his stock; it's rising,
Yeah.
but it is not a sure thing.
But I mean,
not
really,
even close.
What we're saying is that it is malpractice that if you have Jokic and these other elite top 10 guys who are monsters in EPM, right, as on your team, it is malpractice on your part as an owner and a GM that you cannot figure out a way to build a contending roster around that, because that's the hard part, right? Is to get that guy.
Are you pointing a finger at Dallas?
Mm-hmm. I said, I'm not saying anybody in particular. I'm just generally speaking.
Well, I think there's a lot of horseshit in this game, right? There's a lot of confusion about oh, well, next to Luka, you're going to want, what? Someone's going to tell you a ball handling wizard, high scoring point guard would be the perfect thing. So there's going to be a million philosophies, and they're not all equally true.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Like the roles that they defined around Jokic and Murray, they were right. Right?
And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think Henry said exactly right. Denver deserves credit for what they built. Mike Malone deserves credit. Calvin Booth and the Cronkies, they deserve credit for what they built around the world's best player.
The story behind that is that Malone and Booth, when they were speaking at this point, talked about watching the NBA Finals last year. So that was the Celtics and the Warriors. And they said, well, these are the kinds of players we need if we're going to play in the NBA Finals. And Malone said in an article, guys who can only do one thing aren't on the floor or find themselves getting played off the floor. We can't have guys like that. Can't draft. We need big guys who can do multiple things. And that's what they have, right? Aaron Gordon's a big guy who can do lots of things. Bruce Brown's 6'5", who can do lots of things, right?
Guys that are taller than 6'5", with a 7-foot plus wingspan and are athletic and are multi-skilled can play in the playoffs all they want. Yeah. They have to learn how to play, but those guys have real value. It's why
are a lot of them in this draft too. I mean,
for sure there are. But that's
why
Masai,
frustrating is you can't really tell who can play from.
Right. Well, you got to put them in the right system and get the right strategy around it.
Yeah.
That's why Masai wouldn't trade Siakam, OG, and Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
Because he had 3 of what everyone wants. One was Rookie of the Year, one was up for Defensive Player of the Year, and the other's been All-NBA twice. Mm-hmm. Those guys are hard to get. They're out there. You got to coach them up, develop them up, build a system around them. And then you've got a chance.
No, it's very true. And, we'll see what happens now. So the draft is coming up, guys. Next Thursday will be the NBA draft. I know David's busy. He's got work to do around that.
Next Thursday?
Yeah, 22nd. Yeah, next Thursday.
Jeez.
So we will not be doing another show this week. So this is your 2 shows, guys. You got Monday and Tuesday.
I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, you guys. I just watched all that crap this morning.
Yeah, I was like, just me, the idiot, staying up till 2 a.m. watching that stupid shit. Yeah, so we will see you next week where we'll do some draft preview stuff. We already have some guys that we like.
Anthony Black.
Henry, will you come on for that too? Because you can tell us about the P3 stuff you saw.
I have such a narrow I don't there's really good players I've never seen even 1 second on.
Well,
YouTube.
but
me too though.
P3 lens where you're like, let me tell you who was killing it at P3.
I can tell you, when Jarris Walker shows up, he goes around and shakes every hand in the building, and he's got a big smile on his face. And when they tell him he's going to do 10 assault bike sessions, he goes, "What the hell?" And our whole gym lights up, right? I know this kind of stuff. Yeah,
cool.
I'll be watching tape. I'll take 2 days off. Not that I will be working, but I won't be watching film for a couple of days. Probably. I was watching film this morning, but I'll get caught up on some of the guys so that we can talk more about it Monday.
It's gonna be very hard not to just make the whole thing about the Blazers, but we'll try.
Won't be hard for me at all.
Oh, and
it's also frustrating to me. I'm frustrated both ways.
Oh my god, this is too good. This is too good.
It would be too much if I became a huge Blazer fan.
I listen to other shows with less insight than the one that I'm on to get Blazer insight. Because I want to know what everybody's saying about the Blazers. Yeah.
Well, listen, you're probably, let's be real, Henry. You're probably going to be disappointed this season coming up, as you have been for many seasons.
Well, it depends.
Show's over. I gotta go.
It won't be because they lose a lot. It just depends on how they're structured and what they're playing
and what they decide to do. Right.
Yeah.
A last thing before we go. Now that the Denver Nuggets have won the NBA championship, John Morant, expect a call from Adam Silver on what your punishment's going to be.
What's our over under? So I'm gonna do the over under at 41 half the season.
Okay.
What are we doing?
That's what I think it should be, but it's probably going to be under.
So you think under 41? Yes. How about you, Henry?
I think it's gonna be 35.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. All right, guys. Have a great week and weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care.